Yeah, what's up everybody? It's Tuna. So today I've actually been sponsored by the XD Torchlight team to have a look at the new expansion release, the Cube of Rapacity. The Cube of Rapacity is going to be a new season mechanic that is introduced. It is coming out on the 9th of May, so look forward to that. It's a game that I've been playing now for about 3 seasons, and I really look forward to playing it every season, and it's definitely a burst of fun and something to look forward to. For the mechanic itself, the monsters will drop the Desire Crystals, which is a currency that cannot be taken out of maps, and it is used to interact with a cube. So once you've defeated the map boss in each section, you will be able to pay Desire Crystals to the cube in order to gain and receive rewards amongst 8 of the displayed choices at random. You can indefinitely spend crystals, but the more you do, the higher the chance of the cube to be disintegrated. So it's going to destroy the rewards, and you have to be able to claim, all the rewards that you've wanted to claim until that point. So knowing when to stop will be key, and getting the most out of the mechanic will sort of be like a test of your greed, because sometimes it can pay out massively, and other times it can actually, completely obliterate everything you've worked up to that point. So on top of that, they're also introducing an avarice code, which is a talent tree that lets you customize your gameplay experience and the rewards you gain when encountering the cube in the encounters, right? So this will allow you to sort of develop different strategies and adds depth and replayability to the season mechanic, and it gives you more ways to discover and min-max the encounters and stuff like that. So that is also really, really good because, as ARPG players, we always want to get the most out of each encounter. So metas will emerge and people will sort of develop their own playstyle and, get the most out of their cube Rapacity, of course. And on top of the random rewards offered by the cube, there will be opportunity to gain Desire Crystals, which is Desire Beads, which is another currency that can be traded with NPCs in town. And is a material, for materials and stuff like that. So it's sort of a system that serves as a way to reward players for engaging with the mechanic passively, and give you additional rewards on top of everything, of course. In addition to the rewards offered by the cube, monsters will also have a chance at dropping desired cores, which basically serves as an invitation to fight the new boss, the Lawbearer. And it'll present sort of a huge challenge for the season. It'll grant you a variety of rewards and very strong loot. And if you guys know anything about Torchlight, there's a Uber version of it, which basically it serves as a way to humble your character. And it sort of puts you in place because you realize, I'm gonna actually need to get like 10 times the damage I have to even be able to scratch this guy. So that is really cool and something that I always look forward to strive towards, and as my challenge. Sort of league goal every time, and yeah, something I really look forward to. But the main feature of this league is the Statue of God, which is a new system introduced which gives players the ability to gain passive skills from trees that they have not specialized in. So it allows for sort of a greater variety of builds as you gain access to build enabling passives from powers, talents and other trees that you weren't able to spec into before because it might have been disadvantageous or, amongst other reasons, of course. So these slates will drop from the monsters and will also be craftable with new currencies that you gain through the cube. So essentially, this will give players the ability to create talent slates that can also be traded for. So that has an economic component to it, of course. But on top of that, unique slates will drop that will also modify the powers of other slates within the tangram, which is the sort of cube thing that you've seen. So this tangram essentially will allow you to place the slates in a certain way, in that, like, if you place one above and there's one below, it'll give you like additional powers to the one below it, etc., etc. So like sort of placing the tangrams within, placing the slates within the tangram will be able to further min-max your character and build, as well as give you additional ways to sort of create insane builds, a new variety of crazy interactions with the different gods, which essentially are the different passive skill trees within this game, which will give you a huge boost in power, of course, as well as ways to create different interactions with different skills that you weren't previously able to. In this new season, on top of all of these features, there are new heroes and new traits to mess around with. So one of them is the Escapist Bing, and the other is the Oracle Thea. Escapist Bing is essentially going to be the trapper of this game. He will essentially turn skills into traps, will throw them on the ground, and essentially you will be able to scale the amount of traps that you throw onto the floor, and those traps will explode with projectiles which scatter out in sort of like a star pattern. allowing for insane clear and shotgunning to deal incredible amounts of damage. I think is one of the most exciting features of this season, and one of the champions that I will be very, very happy to sort of experiment with. And the other, of course, is the Oracle Thea. So Thea got a new hero trait added, which allows her to consume blessings to gain short and explosive buffs. You'll be able to shift between divine realms, and she can gain buffs from either Goddess of Hunting or a God of Might. Goddess of Hunting grants attack speed as well as more damage to enemies on full life, whereas the God of Might grants a lot of damage reduction to enemies which have low life, as well as a lot of damage reduction to yourself. So shifting between them will allow you to tap into each power, giving you a way to customize your gameplay depending on the encounter that you are going up against. In this new season, you will also have 5 new skills to use, 4 of which are sentries. The Ghostblade Sentry will lock onto enemies and it throws knives at them. This will be scaled through multi-strike as well as additional projectiles, and once these knives explode, they will deal damage to enemies within an area. The Arrow Sentry will shoot an arrow into the sky, basically like a rain of arrows, and then when it falls, it deals area of effect damage, as well as it being able to shotgun enemies within that area, so that is going to be a very, very strong. The Thunder Core is going to be a spell sentry, which locks onto a target and makes thunder strike around them, basically like a cluster, a bomb type of situation. And also will deal, a substantial amount of damage to enemies within the area, as well as the capability of shotgunning. And the Frostcore Sentry has a more complex mechanic in that it consumes Frostbite rating from the enemy. So Frostbite rating is basically like a stack of chill, which you gain through cold damage. And essentially, it will deal more damage to enemies with a higher Frostbite rating, and it will be very advantageous for you to build chance to inflict Frostbite because of the way that it interacts with that, and because of the damage multipliers that you will gain from that. The Thunder Spike, on the other hand, is an attack-based skill. Essentially, the Thunder Spike will be a targeted strike ability, which also deals damage to enemies within an area. So every enemy found within that area will be striked by sort of an ancestral strike effect, and this will deal damage depending on how much shock is present on that enemy. So it will also trigger additional shocks per hit. Essentially, shock in this game is a base damage that is inflicted upon an enemy. When it is triggered, it will deal that damage. And what this enables is for you to deal basically double damage with shocks, which is a new mechanic, which is absolutely insane, and can be also scaled with the passive tree, of course. So on top of all the new features and skills that have been introduced this league, there's also new items, of course, and these new items will grant you an insane amount of power, of course, and will be also very, very rare, I think, for the most part, because they will be dropping from the new bosses, and they will also interact with the new mechanics added. So a lot of these mechanics have yet to be sort of discovered, of course, and these are things that we'll have to uncover as the season goes on. But essentially, it will give players new ways to customize and create builds which have not been possible before. So I really look forward to finding these, theory crafting with them. And one thing I really, really enjoy about this game is the fact that corruptions can positively affect or negatively affect, in some cases, these affixes on these items, granting you like new ways to build characters and enabling affixes to be basically turned from okay to absolutely insane, right? So yeah, I think the corruption system is one of the coolest things about the Torchlight, and I look forward to seeing what you can actually do with these new items and playing around with them and making new builds. Now, the most exciting thing is the new mechanic, the Spell Burst. So essentially, the Spell Burst is a new support type of skill which allows spells to be essentially triggered in a way that they will fire multiple versions of itself through one button click. Essentially, what this allows is for a more mobile playstyle for spellcasters, so you won't have to just sit there and spam cast. The way you can look at this is sort of like Unleash in Path of Exile, but instead of casting and you basically trigger all those while standing still, you cast it and it will trigger those skills in sequence, and you can still walk around, essentially giving you a way to spam cast abilities while still being able to be mobile. It essentially makes it so that you can still be mobile and move away from telegraphs and stuff like that from bosses without taking damage. And as you can see, you can also further scale that through new passives on the skill tree. So the new talents will allow you to gain additional buffs to burst, and how many spells that can be essentially triggered through the burst. I think this is also going to be enabling new cool builds, in that you'll be more incentivized to create spellcasting builds, as you previously might have not been, since it had too many downsides, of course, compared to other builds. So in this new season, there will also be a new crafting overhaul. Essentially, what they're doing with the new crafting is they're trying to add value to items that are dropped on the floor. So as previously, items that had dropped on the floor were very, very difficult to be modified. What you can do now is you can drop an item, and imagine if it has, in this scenario, as you can see, 2 T1 rolls on the item. What you can do is you can lock those 2 T1 rolls, and then you can modify the item, right? Essentially, this gives a lot of value to items dropped on the floor, as you previously weren't really able to modify the item further, aside from from adding additional mods, which would cost a lot of money, like flame elementium and so on, as well as embers. But now what you can do is you lock these 2 affixes, and then you re-roll the other affixes. So imagine like you had a fractured item in Path of Exile, you fracture 2 modifiers on it, and then you could roll a Chaos Orb on it. This is the way that you will be creating new bases. And this is the way that I see that the crafting system is like. Essentially, you'll be locking your 2 affixes, then you will be spam rolling your affixes on that, and this will consume plasticity. And what plasticity is something like, if you have played Last Epoch, it essentially is like crafting potential. So you can only spend so much plasticity, and there will be a plasticity cost tied to each reroll, essentially making it so that you can't infinitely reroll an item, gain whatever affixes you want. And I think that this system is good in a way that it adds more value to items that are dropped on the floor. So looking at items will be more advantageous to what it was before, and you'll be able to get items that are pretty good already from the get-go just by spamming a few of these rerolls. However, it will be much harder to get perfect items, as it'll be much more expensive to get a good base, and there will be no more, I think, 61 modifier items as there was in the past, since it's still basically just RNG what you're going to be getting when you're actually rolling this item, right? As you can see from the prototype crafting. And then once we have sort of locked on to our 4 affixes or whatever, you go on to the second stage of crafting, which is called target processing, which essentially what it does is it slams a modifier onto an item that is permanent. So you will be at the mercy of RNG, of course, as to what modifier is slammed on there. Essentially I think what they're trying to do is to add more value to items that are dropped on the floor, but it sort of makes it much harder to get perfect items in the game. So it'll sort of be something we have to test around with, and there's a lot of uncertainty for me as to how this will feel. But I think as somebody who just likes to blast maps and get items off the floor, I think it'll feel pretty good to be able to actually modify items that I drop on the floor, and them not just being basically just garbage to be turned into shards and stuff like that. So yeah, it just adds value to items that are dropped on the floor, and less power to crafting, as that was basically the only way to ever make items, was to get a base and then to just slam affix after affix after affix after affix until you get to a full item of full T1 modifiers. So whether this will feel good or not, we'll have to see, but it's something that we'll be experimenting with in the new season. And I look forward to having a go at that and figuring out the new ways to min-max, how to get the most out of your items and most out of the crafting system, of course. So that pretty much sums up my look at the new season, everything we know so far. Of course, there may have been some things that I've missed, but essentially that is all I have to talk about today, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. I once again want to really thank the Torchlight team for having reached out to me. It is a privilege to be able to cover a game that I already have previously enjoyed, and of course gain a bit of money through that. So yeah, thank you very much for XD. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you guys found this helpful, and I hope I've sort of made you look forward to the season a little bit more, as I will be streaming it on Twitch when it does come out, and I'm really looking forward to that. So yeah, May 9th, look forward to seeing you guys there, and I hope you guys have found this information helpful. And yeah, thanks guys, have a good one, peace.